Alright friends, it's T-Man and I'm back with a video. And I just like popped up, man. Again, Jason Blaha, Strength and Fitness. I guess when you watch one video, they just keep sending you more and more. It's Google algorithm. Why heavy partials and lockout work are not that effective? Why heavy partials? They're not effective. Heavy partials are extremely effective. I'll explain it in this video. I'm going to go into more depth. I'm going to listen to what he has to say more this time.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the problem of lockout work for raw lifting. And people need to understand a lot of lockout work in partials came primarily from the equipped powerlifting world, where people are wearing suits and things that literally add hundreds of pounds of force.
That's a lie. Partial reps came out of eccentric movements. And I even read it. I brought up one of them previously, an NCBI report stating that these eccentric movements are they're more sophisticated. They're better. They're superior to concentric movements. Okay, because you could lift heavier. Now, there's a reason why you have to lift heavier. I'll go into it in a minute.
From the bottom of exercises. Okay, so you need to understand that the strength curves are completely different. Now, bands and chains are a different situation because bands and chains can be helpful with rate of force production because of the accommodating resistance. So that's a different topic, and those do have their place for lifters who are trying to learn to lift faster. Okay, but you are still doing a...
You can move extremely fast in a partial eccentric movement. The reason why you want to do short range eccentric movements is because that's what's going to cause the most damage in the muscle fiber. Plus, you're most likely not to get injured. Well, actually, you won't get injured. You'll get injured if you do full range of motion because it's not controlled. It's under more control when it's a partial eccentric movement. And so you could do many of them. And so you could go as heavy as you want because you can't go so heavy in a full range of motion, but you could go super heavy in a partial range of eccentric movement, and you could move super fast. That's what causes muscles to damage. And then they come back growing bigger, better, stronger, and faster, providing that protein synthesis exceeds that breakdown.
Full range of motion on those exercises, so we need to be very, very clear there of what's going on, okay, just so that we understand this. And I'm not saying all your exercises need to be crazy long range of motion, it's just that it would behoove you.
They shouldn't be long range of motion, they should be partial rep motions, because gyms are made to damage muscles. They are there to grow muscles. But if you want to grow a muscle in the gym, yeah, you could buy a 50-pound bag of potatoes and chase this thing called a pump. So you could build pump muscles in the gym. You can pump them up like a balloon. Look, there's many ways to build artificial muscles. One is glycogen loading. The other one is synthol. And then there's site injections. And maybe even Botox. Fuck, who knows? I don't know. You can inject yourself with Botox and create more fake muscles. So there's many ways to create these fake muscles. You can even drink gallons of milk and try to load water into your muscle. You could take creatine. You could load water. This creatine, you could load water in your muscle, 5 pounds of water, and walk around with creatine muscles. So there's many ways to create these fake, phony, artificial muscles. If that's your goal, then you should be chasing that. But if that isn't your goal and you're chasing something real, that's going to be a lot more difficult.
If most of them are. So when you start looking at a lot of these big lifts and you realize that most people are weakest on most exercises near the bottom, okay? And it makes sense. Like, look at the bench presses. You watch me doing that. Watch even these tricep extensions as you watch me doing those. What's going on? I think it's very obvious what's going on. the muscles are put at the greatest disadvantage at the bottom, and there's the most mechanical tension placed on those muscles, like right here. Where do the triceps have the most mechanical tension? At the bottom. They're being stretched.
Listen to the word mechanical tension. That's just another word for micro damage. Mechanical tension. If you're focused on mechanical tension, then you're going to get micro damage. But you can't get it if you are adapted. It's protected.
They're at a disadvantage, okay? Your bench press is the same way. So people would even talk about, lockouts for tricep strength, for lockouts on the bench. But when you
listen to him talking about strength, you can't get stronger and damage muscles at the same time. It's impossible. Look, I can explain this. So you can only chase one thing at a time. You either chase this chemical strength, which is this right here, what he's getting in the gym. These power lifters, everybody, they're chasing this. Myocytic androgen receptor controls strength, but not the mass of the limb muscles. So that is the strength they're getting. How does that work? It's easy. It's an adaptation process. So when you come into the gym, right, you're a chronic lifter now. Muscles are protected from this damage. There's no more damage, because if you were to get damaged, you wouldn't be able to do this. And I'll explain why. Because, man, look, if your muscles were to get damaged, here's delayed onset muscle soreness. This explains everything, okay? So what is delayed onset muscle soreness? It's a type of ultrastructural muscle injury. So he's talking about mechanical tension, which is what? Micro injuries, okay? So you get these micro injuries. Well, what happens when you get them? A manifestation of DOMS is caused by what? Eccentric or unfamiliar forms of exercise. See what I mean? They didn't say chronic lifting in a gym. They said eccentric or unfamiliar forms. He's not focused on eccentric because he's doing concentric. He's not focused on eccentric. He's focused on concentric. The movement is too slow. It's an up and down, up and down. It's not like that. In eccentric movement, you can move heavier and it's faster. The movements are rapid and fast, and you can move heavier weight all the time. But guess what's going to happen? Guess what's going to happen when you damage these muscle fibers? Well, here it is. The clinical signs include what? Reduced force capacities. So how the fuck could you get stronger in the gym lifting a heavy weight if you've got reduced force capacities? Increased painful restriction. How's that working for you? Powerlifting, eh? Deadlifting, huh? Painful restriction, movement, stiffness, swelling, and dysfunction. Dysfunction of adjacent joints. So if you're dysfunctioning and you're losing force production, force capacities is going down, and you got all these problems, how the fuck can you do this? How the fuck can you do that? See, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. That only happens in people that are adapted. And this happens to people when they're what? Unfamiliar forms. Untrained, unfamiliar, unaccustomed. That's right. And the movement has to be focused on eccentric. That's right. Eccentric gets that. It gets this. What is it? What is it exactly? What does it do? Well, the primary mechanism is currently considered to be the ultrastructural what? Damage of what? Muscle cells due to what? Unfamiliar sporting activities or eccentric exercise. They never say concentric, do they? They never say that in muscle damage. I think people are really confused. You understand me? So he's focused on myocytic androgen receptor strength, a chemical strength. He's focused on building chemical strength, which can go away really fast. Because in that report, it tells you when the AR was diminished, the muscular strength was gone. I'll explain this. It's a fantasy strength, okay? It's fantasy. It's fantasy. Because it tells you here. They say, when this... Importantly, we also show that AR deficiency, when there's a deficiency in AR, in limb myositis, impairs myofibrillar organization of sarcomeres and decreases muscle strength, thus demonstrating that myocytic AR controls key pathways required for what? Maximum force production. And so when you build up these ARs, you've got maximum force production. But when you go away from the gym for a while, you lose the AR, and guess what? You lose that maximum force production. That's why you keep complaining that you're getting weaker. Or I came in yesterday, I could squat 500. Today I could barely do 250. Why is that? Because you lost the myocytic androgen receptors. That's what happens. You lose them sometimes. Even in working out, you can lose them, get them, lose them, because it's based on chemical strength. Like a lady in an emergency, she needs to lift a car off her kid, 6,000-pound car. She gets an influx of what? Adrenaline rush. Boom. Does that mean she's strong? No.
But when you watch even the bench press stuff, where you
So none of his strength is based on building natural strength through myofibrillar growth.
weakest, where's your triceps at a disadvantage? At the very bottom. Okay? So working.
Again, here's one more thing I gotta mention. So this is from NCBI. It's called nutrition, protein, whatever synthesis. If muscle is going to gain mass, protein synthesis must exceed protein breakdown. Do you people understand that? It isn't I gotta lift a heavy weight to see mass on my muscles. I'm gonna hypertrophy. My muscles are gonna hypertrophy because I lifted a heavy weight. They ain't gonna hypertrophy. They hypertrophy when protein synthesis exceeds protein breakdown. That's when you're going to see what? Mass. But you aren't going to see any mass lifting a heavy weight. Well, because it says there, myocytic androgen receptor, it controls strength. It doesn't control mass of the limb muscles. What controls it? Food controls it. While it may be common to view resistance training as a powerful stimulus for protein synthesis, it is also important to recognize that it is a signal for what? Protein breakdown. So you could actually lose muscle in a gym working out. Yeah, man. That's why a lot of people are complaining. I'm shrinking. I'm actually losing muscle. You are. You are losing muscle because you're stupid.
Triceps, in theory, should help you at the bottom also, not just the top. What ends up happening on a bench press, which can be a little bit complicated, the bar path is affected. So weak triceps will create an inefficient bar path. Okay, because you'll try to compensate with your delt.
See, he's building mass on his body, throwing a weight up and down in the air. He's still wondering why his arms are never growing. I could get his arms to grow fucking massive. I could get him up to 20-inch arms if he wants. Puh, he's too stubborn and too stupid to listen. He thinks a weight builds muscles. It's a dummy. 35 years, he says, 30 years or 35 years of lifting or some bullshit, man, or whatever. And this is all he has to show for it? That's crazy. He's got nothing to show except sarcopenia.
Right, you'll compensate with your delts if your delts are stronger than your triceps. And what happens? You get a bad bar path that's harder to lock out because you don't have the tricep strength. So there's a bit of a misconception.
You should focus on damaging the smaller, weaker muscle fibers so that they could get up to par. They could get bigger, better, stronger, and faster. Strength, power, speed, and performance. Look, man, it says in NCBI, this is what it's going to tell you, that eccentric exercises are superior and that building myofibrillar growth is superior. What does it equate to? Bigger, better, stronger, faster. Strength, power, speed, and performance is what it gives you. Yeah, it is much more superior than powerlifting. Powerlifting is not superior because it's based on chemical strength. That's why it's not a carryover. It's not a carryover to any sport, especially sports. That's why people who build myofibrillar growth, they could carry it over to any sport like arm wrestling or anything and destroy people. But if you're building chemical strength, you're going to be weak like Larry Wheels. That's why they beat him all the time. They beat him in these physical sports. They beat him up. He tried strongman. He couldn't make it. He fucking snapped his fucking bicep in lifting one of those rocks. He fucked his bicep, and because he's weak, his body's weak because he built no muscle. And then he tried arm wrestling. They beat him all the time in arm wrestling. He's getting a little bit better, a little bit, but he's not that good because people are like, well, how could Schoolboy beat him if Schoolboy doesn't deadlift 900 or 800 off the floor? Because you don't have to. That's based on chemical strength. He isn't basing it on myofibular strength. Schoolboy has got more muscle fibers than Larry Wheels. So he'll always be physically stronger. That's why you get this idiot, what's his name? What the fuck's that guy who owns that stupid gym online? He's always like, I'm 260, I'm 260, I'm 260. And then he tried to wrestle Brian Shaw. Remember that? He tried to wrestle Brian Shaw in the hallway. And he's like, I'm 260. Brian Shaw looks like a monster. He fucking tossed him around like he was a little kid. Yeah, man. Fuck it, bro. Because they're all weak, these steroid people with their forced production. It's all garbage. They got sarcoplasmic hypertrophy muscles and fucking chemical strength. It's all shit.
So understanding what's going on there, it's not that the triceps themselves are a big deal. It's that you can't maintain the ideal bar path if you don't have strong triceps. But overall, all of
How do you build strong triceps? Think about that. How do you build them? I know. Adapted and trying to get chemical strength, more of these myocytic androgen receptors so they pop up. So you could get better at lifting that, like a factory worker. Think about it. Why does your body, if you're adapted, why does your body give you these myocytic androgen receptors to give you more force production in the factory or any kind of job that you're doing, construction or whatever? Because it doesn't want to build muscle. Why doesn't it want to build muscle? It will only ever build muscle if it's forced to build it, forced to. It has to be forced in a position to build that muscle. And even then, your body doesn't want to really build muscle. Why? Because that's carry you through a famine. Man, hello. But it will put a lot of fat on your body because fat doesn't have a domain size limit, nor does glycogen loading. It has no domain size limit. It's not controlled by the satellite cell or myostatin, follistatin. Look, fat cells and fucking sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is not controlled by MND size limit, but muscles are. They're heavily controlled by satellite cells, by follistatin, myostatin, a whole bunch of other things, okay? It's regulated. It's a domain, man. It's very specific. And so are your bones. They're not going to just exponentially get bigger forever.
muscles are really at the most disadvantage at the bottom. So it's really where you should be training. If you want big raw lifts,
Whatever.
hypertrophy. Okay, this is why when you take serious bodybuilders who have really well-developed muscles through their entire body and you put them on a powerlifting type program, what happens? They end up having elite lifts very, very, very fast.
Again, he's talking about phony bodybuilders taking steroids and they're going to get elite lifts very, very fast because they injected steroids binding with the androgen receptor, giving them more force production.
Okay? And I mean, you can take guys who've done nothing but hypertrophy work of 8+ type reps for years.
Hypertrophy, I did hypertrophy work. I wolfed down 50-pound bags of potatoes. I did a lot of hypertrophy work. And what about it? You think that glycogen in my muscles is going to make me stronger? You're stupid.
Years and years, and they've gotten really big and really thick. What happens?
I like how he says, they did a lot of hypertrophy work. They got really big and really thick. They did hypertrophy work. You want to know where I do my fucking hypertrophy work? I do it at the buffet, like it says there. You want to see where I do it? It says if muscle's going to gain mass, protein synthesis must exceed protein breakdown. You want to know where I do it? I have a video on my channel. You want to know where I do it? At the Mandarin. That's where I do it, at the buffet.
Really big and really thick. What happens?
I don't do it in gyms with weights, throwing weights around all day. And then I got to go home and carb load. I gotta fucking, whatever. I got to restore myself or whatever the fuck they're talking about.
You start having them train singles, doubles, triples.
And the best day, I gotta rest or something, or recover. I gotta recover so I could go back and hit it again.
Sometimes within a matter of weeks, they have monstrous bench presses. They have monstrous squats. Right? Why? Because they have well-developed musculature.
No, they don't, because they injected more chemical strength. They're relying on more chemical strength by injecting it. That's how.
If they've trained everything. The reason you see some guys, people are like, well, this guy can't deadlift and he's really big.
Think about it. When they go off these chemicals, they go off these drugs, what happens? They can't bench, they can't lift, they can't do any of these things anymore. They all go away because it's cosmetic. It's all fake. And they didn't build any muscle even when they were on the drug. They didn't try to build anything. They just did pump work. That's it.
It's like, but are the
The body still works the way it does in the real natural world. It has to be injured. The progenitor has to come out, donate its nuclei. To further that domain, you have to push it by protein synthesis exceeding that breakdown so it can donate its nuclei. It will not donate its nuclei a second time to damage muscle fibers if they have not exceeded a ceiling limit.
primary movers of the deadlift big? Like, what? Look at his glutes and hamstrings.
Yeah.
Big delts and bicep. This idea that the lockout work helps. No, lockout work usually just beats you up.
Lockout work beats you up? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. This guy's crazy.
Maybe, maybe not. I think you're better off getting faster. This is where speed work comes in. All right, now.
I love this. You're better off getting faster. Well, if you build myofibrillar growth, it's equated with strength, power, speed, and performance. Yeah.
That's where bands and chains and things. That's what happens. Or they're trying to use a lot of the thoracic rounding, and it's not even the same bar path. Right. So my advice to most people, unless you have a specific weakness, just keep getting bigger.
If you have a specific weakness, just keep getting bigger, bro. How do you keep getting bigger, though? Lifting heavy weights in the gym?
Bring these exercises through full ranges of motion.
See, bring these exercises through full range of motion. How's that working for Blaha? Not.
Okay, get strong out of the bottom of lifts so that you can get the weight moving quickly.
See, get strong out of the box. How could you get strong if you're damaging, if muscles are getting damaged and you're getting reduced force capacity? How could you be getting stronger? I don't understand this. How could you be getting stronger? How? If you have reduced force capacities, increased painful restriction of movement, stiffness, swelling, and dysfunction of adjacent joints because ultrastructural damage to muscle cells, then I don't understand. How could you be getting stronger? See what I mean? How do you get stronger? By getting more myofibrillars. And then you get weaker again. When you go into the gym, you get weak because you've damaged these muscles. And then you give it a whole week to repair and remodel. And then protein synthesis exceeds that breakdown. So you could further that domain the following week. But if it does not exceed that breakdown during that week, your body will not donate any extra nuclei the second time you come there to damage it. You'll be wasting your time.
When you do need to max, and then just focus on building up all your weak links. Okay, because if you build all
You'll be like this guy, dragging a weight off the floor, up and then dropping it down, up and down.
the weak links, then you're going to be in a good place anyways. It's like if your weak links are causing you to have a weak lockout,
Absolutely for nothing. Absolutely for nothing, zero.
which is again, and lockout work. I'm not saying it can't help some, it's just not efficient. It's going to give you less results than if you just did these other things. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say.
I like how he bounces with it. His head just bounces up and down with that, man. I gotta go. Tell me what you think about that. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Helps with the algorithm. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, friends. This is just more painful lifting, watching this guy wasting his time, wasting his life away. See you in the next one.